My wife suggested we celebrate our anniversary at her family's remote cabin. On the drive up, my 9-year-old daughter quietly passed me a note. Dad, turn around now. I made up an excuse to stop at a gas station. In the restroom, she pulled out my wife's hidden second phone. What I saw made my stomach turn. Cyrus Monroe wiped sweat from his brow, surveying the foundation of his latest build. At 42, his hands bore the rough marks of a man who built everything he had from nothing. The Denver sun was relentless when his phone buzzed. Monroe Construction, he answered, voice calm but commanding the tone that earned him respect across Colorado. Cyrus, we need to lock in our anniversary plans, Naomi said. 15 years deserves something special. He sighed, eyes on the skyline, the one he helped build. I thought we agreed. Your family's cabin. Just us and the kids. I was thinking, maybe drop the kids at my sister's. Make it romantic. Her tone made him pause. 15 years with Naomi had given him instincts. Something was off. No, the kids are coming, he said. Sabrina's been counting the days, and Aiden needs time away from those screens. There was a brief silence. Fine. I'll pack for 4, Naomi replied. As he hung up, Cyrus couldn't shake the unease gnawing at him. Over the past year, Naomi had changed. Small things that individually meant nothing, but together, they formed a troubling pattern: new clothes, late book club meetings, unexplained absences, and a growing emotional distance. That evening, Cyrus pulled into their upscale Cherry Creek neighborhood, a home he had partially built himself. Through the window, he saw Naomi on the phone in the kitchen, her back turned, laughing. A real laugh, one he rarely heard anymore. When she spotted his truck, she quickly ended the call. Who was that? He asked casually, setting his keys on the counter. Veronica. Going over some details for when we get back from the cabin, Naomi answered, tucking a strand of auburn hair behind her ear. At 39, she still turned heads with her fitness model physique and calculated style. Cyrus nodded, not pushing further, despite the lie. Veronica was in Breckenridge this week. He knew because he had spoken to her husband, Brett, about a potential renovation job just hours earlier. He found Sabrina in her room, organizing her small backpack for the trip. His daughter looked up with serious brown eyes, so like his own. Sometimes, Cyrus felt she saw everything. Daddy, can we go fishing at the cabin like last time? She asked. Absolutely, princess. Just you and me at dawn, like always. He ruffled her hair, noticing a drawing on her desk. It showed 4 stick figures standing together, with a 5th figure drawn faintly in the background. When he asked about it, Sabrina shrugged and quickly put it away. Aiden's door was closed, the sounds of his gaming headset filtering through. At 14, his son had begun to pull away, spending more time with Naomi and adopting her materialistic values. Cyrus knocked, but only received a grunt in response. That night, Cyrus lay awake next to Naomi, watching her scroll through her phone, a small smile playing on her lips. When she noticed him watching, she quickly set the phone face down. What? She asked, a defensive edge to her voice. Nothing, Cyrus replied, just thinking about the cabin. It's been a while since we were all there together. She murmured non-committally, turning away from him. The next morning, as they loaded the SUV for the 3-hour drive to the remote cabin near Grand Lake, Cyrus noticed Naomi making a quick, hushed call from the garage. When she returned, she seemed distracted, repeatedly checking her phone. Sabrina, watching everything with quiet intensity, stuck close to her father. During a brief moment alone, as Naomi did a final check of the house, Sabrina whispered, Dad, I don't think Mom wants to go to the cabin. Why is that? Cyrus asked. Sabrina hesitated, her voice soft. She told someone on the phone. It's a complication. Sabrina's eyes, too perceptive for her age, held a silent question that Cyrus wasn't ready to answer. The drive up the mountains felt tense. Aiden sat quietly in the back seat, focused on his devices. Naomi kept checking her phone, even though the signal was bad. Cyrus didn't say a word, gripping the steering wheel tightly and watching everything around them. What really got to him wasn't just the fear of being betrayed, it was the sinking feeling that his whole life might be based on something shaky and unreliable. The winding mountain roads grew narrower as Cyrus's SUV climbed toward Grand Lake. Naomi had become increasingly agitated as cell service faded, checking her phone compulsively at every curve. Maybe we should have gone to Cancun instead, she said, breaking an hour-long silence. This place is so isolated. Cyrus's eyes flickered to the rearview mirror. That's the point of a getaway, isn't it? To disconnect. In the back seat, Sabrina met her father's gaze in the mirror, a silent communication passing between them. She had been unusually quiet, her small notebook on her lap, where she'd been scribbling instead of playing her usual card games. Aiden pulled one earbud out. How much longer? I'm starving. About 40 minutes, Cyrus replied. Well, stop at the general store first, and stock up before we head to the cabin. Naomi's phone chimed with a text, a brief moment of service. Her reaction was subtle but unmistakable. A quick intake of breath, a flush creeping up her neck, fingers moving rapidly to reply before the signal disappeared again. Work? Cyrus asked casually. Veronica? Naomi lied smoothly, making sure we arrived safely. The family stopped at Willow Creek General Store, the last outpost before the remote cabin. While Naomi shopped for groceries with Aiden, Cyrus checked their fishing gear outside the store. Sabrina approached him, glancing around to ensure they were alone. Dad, she whispered, I need to tell you something. Cyrus crouched to her level. What is it, princess? Sabrina's eyes darted toward the store. Mom has another phone. I saw her hiding it in her toiletry bag. A cold weight settled in Cyrus's stomach. Are you sure? Sabrina nodded solemnly. She doesn't know I saw. She uses it when she thinks no one's watching. Before Cyrus could ask more, Naomi and Aiden emerged from the store with grocery bags. The conversation halted, but the seed of doubt had been planted. As they continued toward the cabin, Cyrus's mind raced with possibilities. None of them were innocent. The Preston family cabin sat nestled among tall pines, overlooking a serene lake. Originally a modest structure built by Naomi's grandfather, Cyrus had spent 2 summers renovating it into a comfortable retreat, with modern amenities while maintaining its rustic charm. It symbolized countless hours of his labor, a gift of love to a family he now feared was falling apart. After unloading the SUV, Cyrus announced, Aiden, help me check the generator and water pump. Sabrina, you and Mom can get the beds made. Naomi frowned. Actually, I should start dinner. Sabrina can handle the beds. In the utility shed, Cyrus tried engaging with his son. How's school going? Still having trouble with algebra, Aiden shrugged, barely glancing up from his phone despite the lack of service. It's fine. You know there's more to life than that screen, Cyrus said, checking the generator oil. When I was your age. Yeah, I know, Aiden interrupted. You were building houses and working 2 jobs. We've heard it. The disrespect stung, but Cyrus recognized a deeper issue. Everything okay between you and your mom lately? Aiden stiffened. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, just asking. Mom's cool. She gets me, Aiden muttered. Unlike some people. Cyrus let the comment slide, focusing on the task at hand while processing what this might mean. Had Naomi been turning their son against him? What else didn't he know? Dinner was a strained affair. Naomi seemed distracted, her attention divided between picking at her food and glancing out the window toward the lake. Cyrus noticed her checking her watch several times. Early appointment tomorrow? He asked pointedly. What? No, Naomi replied too quickly. Just thinking we should watch the sunset by the lake after dinner. Great idea, Cyrus agreed, watching her face fall slightly. Family tradition, right kids? Aiden groaned, but Sabrina's eyes lit up. Can we make esmores too? As they cleared the table, Sabrina slipped close to her father and quietly passed him a folded note. Their eyes met briefly before she turned to help Naomi with the dishes. Cyrus waited until he stepped outside onto the porch to unfold the note. In Sabrina's careful handwriting were 6 words that confirmed his worst fears. Dad, turn around now. Mom's lying. Cyrus's military training kicked in. Assess, plan, execute. He needed evidence before confronting her. He folded the note carefully into his pocket and rejoined his family, a calm mask hiding the storm inside. I think I left the fishing gear in the car, he announced. I'll grab it before dark. Outside, Cyrus circled back to peer through the cabin window. Naomi was checking her watch again, her expression anxious. He watched as she told Sabrina and Aiden she needed to use the bathroom, then slipped upstairs with her toiletry bag. Cyrus made his decision. Sabrina, he called through the screen door. Want to help me find the tackle box? His daughter was at his side in seconds. Once they were alone by the SUV, Cyrus knelt down. I need you to be honest with me. What else do you know? Sabrina's eyes welled with tears. Mom's planning something bad. I heard her talking to someone about meeting at the cabin. She didn't know I was listening. When was this? Yesterday. She said the cabin was perfect because you'd never suspect. Sabrina hesitated. Dad, there's more. I found text messages on her secret phone. She accidentally left it in the bathroom. It said they were going to tell you this weekend. Cyrus's heart pounded in his chest. Tell me what? That she's leaving with him. The betrayal cut deep, but Cyrus kept his composure for his daughter's sake. Sabrina, I need a favor. A big one. Can you help me? She nodded without hesitation. I'm going to tell Mom we need to drive back to town for something I forgot. I need you to find that phone and bring it to me. Can you do that? It's in her blue toiletry bag, the small zipper pocket, Sabrina whispered. I already checked. Cyrus stared at his daughter, impressed by her resourcefulness and saddened that she had been burdened with such knowledge. How long have you known? 3 months, Sabrina admitted. I tried to tell you. But you always said Mom was just busy with her new job. The realization that his 9-year-old had been carrying this secret alone filled Cyrus with guilt and determination. I'm sorry, Princess, but that ends today. Back inside the cabin, Cyrus announced that they needed to run to the general store for propane since the tanks were almost empty. Won't last the weekend, he added. Can it wait until morning? Naomi asked, clearly annoyed. Better safe than sorry with the night temperatures dropping, Cyrus insisted. Sabrina, want to come along for the ride? As they prepared to leave, Sabrina disappeared upstairs to use the bathroom. Minutes later, she reappeared, giving her father a nearly imperceptible nod. The drive back down the mountain was silent until they were well away from the cabin. Cyrus pulled into the empty parking lot of a scenic overlook. Let me see it, he said quietly. Sabrina reached into her pocket and handed him a small burner phone. I'm sorry, Dad, she whispered. You have nothing to be sorry for, Cyrus reassured her, taking the phone. You did exactly right. The bathroom at the Willow Creek gas station smelled of pine cleaner and neglect. Cyrus locked the door behind them, his hands steady despite the earthquake happening inside him. Sabrina stood watch by the sink as he powered on the burner phone. No password. Naomi hadn't expected anyone to find it. The text messages loaded, revealing months of conversation between Naomi and someone saved simply as R. Cyrus scrolled through them rapidly, each message like a knife twist. Miss you already. 3 more days until freedom. Are you sure he doesn't suspect? Cyrus is clueless, too busy with his precious business to notice anything. What about the kids? Aiden will adjust. Sabrina might be a problem. Too attached to her father. The most recent messages outlined their plan. Raymond Preston, Naomi's brother-in-law and Veronica's husband, would arrive at the cabin tomorrow night while Cyrus took the kids fishing. They would confront Cyrus together, tell him about their 2-year affair, and announce they were leaving together. They'd already secured an apartment in Phoenix. Raymond, the man who had sat at their dinner table, played with their children, and accepted Cyrus's help with renovating his own home. The betrayal was overwhelming. Dad. Sabrina's small voice broke through his shock. Are you okay? Cyrus composed himself, shielding his daughter from the depths of his rage. I'm fine, Princess. You did good. What are we going to do now? Cyrus considered their options. The tactical part of his brain, honed during his years as a Marine and later in his construction business, was already devising a plan. But first, he needed more information. We're going to get some ice cream, he said calmly, pocketing the phone. Then we'll make a plan. At the small diner next to the gas station, Cyrus bought Sabrina a sundae while he made 2 calls from his phone, stepping outside briefly. When he returned, his expression was controlled, revealing nothing of the storm inside. Sabrina, I need you to be brave a little longer, he said, sliding into the booth. We're going back to the cabin, and we're going to act like nothing's wrong. But with Mom and Uncle Raymond. I know, Sabrina interrupted, her voice small. But sometimes in life, you need to gather all the facts before you act. Cyrus leaned forward, his voice gentle but firm. This is important. Can you trust me? Sabrina nodded, her spoon pausing midway to her mouth. Are you and Mom getting divorced? Her question hit Cyrus like a punch to the gut. I don't know yet, he said quietly, his heart aching. But no matter what, you and Aiden will always be my priority. Understand? Back at the cabin, Naomi was pacing the living room. What took so long? She asked, noticing Cyrus's absence. I was about to call. She stopped, realizing how absurd the statement was, considering there was no service at the store. Cyrus lied smoothly. Had to wait for them to bring more propane from the back. That night, Cyrus lay awake beside his wife, listening to her breathing, wondering how many nights she had lain beside him thinking of another man. The woman he'd built his life around, the mother of his children, was now a stranger. The burner phone, hidden in his fishing tackle box, held not just text messages, but intimate photos, evidence of rendezvous in hotels, while Cyrus thought Naomi was attending client meetings for her boutique marketing job. Plans for their new life, funded by money from their joint accounts. Morning brought forced normalcy. Cyrus suggested taking the kids fishing at dawn as planned, but Naomi suddenly insisted on joining them, something she'd never done before. Since when do you fish? Cyrus asked, raising an eyebrow as he prepared the gear. It's our anniversary weekend. I want to try new things, she replied with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Cyrus recognized the tactic. She was buying time, preventing him from being alone with the kids. As they walked to the lake, Sabrina stayed close to her father while Aiden trudged ahead, still sullen but at least away from his devices. Cyrus noted Naomi checking her watch again. Expecting someone? He asked casually. Her head snapped up. What? No, just checking how much daylight we have. The fishing trip was cut short when Naomi claimed a headache. Back at the cabin, Cyrus watched as she took 2 aspirin and retreated upstairs to rest, though not before checking the hidden pocket where the burner phone should have been. Her momentary panic was only visible to Cyrus, who had been watching for it. Kids, why don't you explore the trails a bit? Stay within shouting distance, Cyrus suggested once Naomi was upstairs. When they were gone, he made another call, keeping his voice low. Delilah, it's Cyrus Monroe. I need that information now. Yes, all of it. Delilah Frost, a private investigator Cyrus had hired after Sabrina's revelation at the gas station, had confirmed what the phone had suggested. The affair had been ongoing for 2 years. Raymond had been embezzling from his financial consulting firm to fund their planned escape. The most painful discovery was that Aiden knew not everything, but enough. Naomi had been subtly priming him, telling him that Cyrus was controlling, that they deserved better. When the kids returned from their hike, Cyrus pulled Aiden aside. Son, we need to talk. Aiden immediately tensed, his defiance clear. About what? About why you've been so angry with me. About what Mom has told you. The boy's face went pale. She didn't tell me anything. I know about Raymond, Cyrus said firmly. I know Mom's been talking to you about leaving. Tears welled in Aiden's eyes. She said, you try to keep us. That you take everything from her. Cyrus kept his anger in check. Has your mother ever known me to be unfair? To be cruel? Aiden looked away. No. I built this family with everything I have. I would never abandon you or your sister, Cyrus said, his voice steady. He placed his hands on his son's shoulders. But I need the truth. All of it. Slowly, Aiden revealed what he knew. Naomi had told him they would start fresh with Raymond, who would be a better match for their family. She'd promised Aiden a new school where he could reinvent himself, free from his reputation as the contractor's son. Did she say when this was happening? Cyrus asked. After this trip, Aiden admitted. She said we should enjoy one last weekend as a family. For memories. The sheer calculation of it all hardened Cyrus's resolve. His wife and her lover had planned not only to destroy his marriage, but to take his children and bankrupt him in the process. As evening approached, Cyrus noticed Naomi growing increasingly anxious. She kept glancing out the window toward the long driveway, then changed into a new outfit, applied makeup, and opened a bottle of wine, setting the stage. Kids, time for a movie in the loft, Cyrus announced, giving them a significant look. Big screen, popcorn, the works. Once they were upstairs, Cyrus poured himself a glass of whiskey and sat across from Naomi at the kitchen table. 15 years, he said quietly. 15 years, Naomi. She set down her wine glass, eyes narrowing. What's that supposed to mean? It means I know, Cyrus said, his voice calm but dangerous in its restraint. I know about Raymond. I know about Phoenix. I know about the money you've been moving from our accounts. Naomi's face cycled through shock, denial, and finally, cold calculation. How long have you known? Long enough. The sound of tires on gravel interrupted them. Headlights swept across the cabin windows as a vehicle approached. Perfect timing, Cyrus said, taking another sip of whiskey. Right on schedule. Naomi stood abruptly. Cyrus, let me explain. Save it for the attorneys, he cut her off. But first, let's welcome our guest, shall we? The headlights illuminated the cabin windows as Raymond's Range Rover pulled up outside. Naomi's eyes darted between Cyrus and the door, panic creeping into her expression. Cyrus, please, she began. Please don't make a scene. Please let you destroy our family quietly. Cyrus's voice remained unervingly calm. A knock at the door. 3 confident raps. Cyrus stood, straightening his shoulders. Should I get that? Or would you prefer to welcome your lover yourself? The color drained from Naomi's face. The kids are upstairs, watching a movie with headphones on. All part of the plan, right? Cyrus moved toward the door. Your plan was to have this conversation with me. Well, now we'll have it. He opened the door to reveal Raymond Preston tall, tanned, and dressed in expensive casual attire that screamed more of aspiring wealth than actual success. For a brief moment, Raymond's practiced smile faltered as he saw Cyrus standing in the doorway instead of Naomi, but he quickly recovered. Cyrus, he greeted, his voice steady. I thought you'd be out with the kids. Change of plans, Cyrus replied, stepping aside to let Raymond in. We were just talking about you. Raymond walked in with the confidence of a man who thought he had all the power, the same kind Cyrus had seen in opponents who failed to realize they were already defeated. Hello, Naomi. Raymond nodded, maintaining a casual facade. Thought we agreed on timing. She didn't have much choice, Cyrus interjected, his tone sharp. Hard to coordinate when your burner phone goes missing. Raymond's eyes widened ever so slightly before his expression smoothed into indifference. I don't know what you're talking about. Cyrus took his phone out of his pocket and threw it on the coffee table. There are 2 years of messages that prove otherwise, he said. Some of them pretty graphic. The room fell silent. What used to feel like a warm cabin now felt tight and suffocating. The 3 of them stood there, not saying a word, but the tension between them was thick. Naomi found her voice, switching from denial to a more measured tone. We didn't want it to happen this way. We were going to tell you tomorrow, properly, with dignity. Dignity? Cyrus scoffed, his laugh devoid of humor. Is that what you call planning to take my children across state lines, draining our accounts, turning my son against me? Raymond stepped forward, raising his hands in a placating gesture. Look, we should all calm down. We're adults here. These things happen, these things. Cyrus interrupted, his voice sharp and cold. You mean sleeping with your wife's sister? Stabbing your own brother-in-law in the back? That. Raymond clenched his jaw. Naomi and I didn't plan for this. It just happened. For 2 years, Cyrus interrupted, his anger mounting. With hotel receipts, secret phones, and an apartment lease in Phoenix. That's not just happening. That's calculated betrayal. A creak on the stairs interrupted them. Sabrina stood halfway down, her small face solemn. Dad, is everything okay? It's fine, Princess, Cyrus assured her. Uncle Raymond just stopped by to talk about some grown-up things. Head back upstairs, okay? Sabrina's eyes shifted between her parents and Raymond, understanding far more than a child should. I told Dad about the phone, she said to Naomi, her voice steady. I'm not sorry. Naomi blanched. Sabrina hesitated before heading upstairs. Cyrus gently intervened. I've got this, he said, as Sabrina reluctantly retreated. Turning back to the two adults, Cyrus's tone hardened. Here's what's going to happen. Raymond, you're going to leave. Naomi, you can go with him if you want, but the kids stay with me tonight. You can't decide that, Naomi protested. They're my children too. You should have thought about that before planning to take them to Arizona, Cyrus replied calmly. Don't worry. We'll sort out custody arrangements the proper way. Unless you'd prefer I call the police about the financial improprieties I've discovered. Raymond stiffened. What financial improprieties? The ones Delilah Frost documented, Cyrus said, referring to the private investigator. Transfers from Brookfield Investments client accounts to your personal offshore account. Did you think I wouldn't check thoroughly once I knew about the affair? Raymond paled. You're bluffing. Cyrus pulled out his phone, showing a series of transaction records. $300,000 over 18 months. Creative accounting, but not creative enough. Raymond was left speechless, the revelation sinking in. Naomi looked between the two men, her future crumbling before her eyes. You set us up, she accused Cyrus. This whole cabin trip was your idea. I just played along once Sabrina showed me what was really happening, Cyrus reminded her coldly. Raymond regained his composure, his anger replacing the shock. You can't prove anything without exposing your own investigation methods. Private investigators accessing financial records? That's not exactly legal either. Cyrus smiled thinly. I don't need to prove anything in court yet. Right now, I just need you both to understand the situation. You're not holding any cards here. He pulled another document from his jacket pocket. This is a record of every dollar removed from our joint accounts over the past year, funds that were contractually designated for our children's education and our business operations. Naomi's breathing quickened as Cyrus finished. I had every right to steal from your children. A judge might disagree, especially when they see the text messages discussing how to hide assets during the divorce you were planning. The cabin fell silent, except for the distant sound of the movie playing upstairs. Cyrus let the moment stretch, watching Raymond and Naomi exchange panicked glances. What do you want? Raymond finally asked, his voice tight. Tonight, I want you gone, Cyrus stated flatly. Tomorrow, my attorney will contact you both with terms. Terms? Naomi echoed. For how this ends, Cyrus clarified. Because it is ending. Make no mistake. Raymond grabbed his car keys. This is, Naomi, get your things. We're leaving. The kids? She began. Stay with me, Cyrus said firmly. Unless you want the authorities questioning why you're fleeing across state lines with minors after withdrawing large sums of money. Raymond headed for the door, his earlier confidence shattered. Naomi hesitated, looking up toward where her children were. For a moment, Cyrus saw a flicker of maternal concern, quickly overshadowed by self-preservation. I'll call you tomorrow, she told Cyrus, grabbing her purse. This isn't over. Actually, it is, Cyrus replied. It ended the moment you involved my children in your betrayal. After they left, the cabin felt eerily quiet. Cyrus poured another whiskey and called upstairs. Kids, you can come down now. Sabrina appeared first, followed by Aiden, whose red-rimmed eyes revealed he'd been crying. Where's Mom? Aiden asked, his voice small. She left with Uncle Raymond, Cyrus answered honestly. She needed some time to think. Sabrina climbed onto her father's lap, something she hadn't done in years. Are we staying at the cabin? Cyrus nodded. For tonight. Tomorrow, we'll head home and figure things out. Is Mom coming back? Aiden pressed, confusion and hurt evident in his expression. Cyrus looked his son in the eyes. I don't know, buddy, but no matter what happens between me and your mother, nothing changes how much I love you both. That night, with his children finally asleep, Cyrus sat on the cabin porch, staring at the stars. He'd won the first round, but he harbored no illusions about what was coming. Naomi wouldn't surrender without a fight, and Raymond had too much to lose to back down easily. His phone vibrated with a text from Delilah Frost. Additional information secured. Moving to phase 2 per your instructions. Cyrus texted back a single word: proceed. The real work was just beginning. The drive back to Denver the next day was heavy with unspoken questions. Aiden sat silently in the back seat, headphones on but no music playing, using them as a shield against conversation. Sabrina alternated between watching the mountains pass and studying her father's profile, gauging his composure. Cyrus maintained a steady presence for his children, but his mind raced through the intricate plan he'd set in motion. Delilah Frost had been thorough, uncovering layers of deception that went far beyond the affair. The financial trail Delilah had uncovered revealed something far more calculated than mere infidelity. When Cyrus returned home, he found evidence that Naomi had already removed personal items, clothes, jewelry, mementos. She'd been preparing for this split much longer than he'd realized. What surprised him, though, was finding the custom suit he had ordered for their anniversary still hanging in the master bedroom closet, the one she had insisted he purchase. Next to it was a bag containing the dress she'd asked him to buy her as a gift, props for a performance that would never take place. Cyrus called his longtime friend, Liam Daniels, arranging for the children to spend the afternoon with his family while he took care of some urgent business. Liam, a former Marine who had served alongside Cyrus before they both entered civilian life, immediately grasped the gravity of the situation. "How bad?" Liam asked when he arrived to pick up the kids. "Worse than I thought," Cyrus replied quietly, making sure Aiden and Sabrina were out of earshot. "I need a few hours to set things in motion." Liam clapped him on the shoulder. "Whatever you need. Angela will keep the kids distracted with the new pool." Once alone, Cyrus reached out to his attorney, Brandon Wells, who arrived within the hour with a thick folder of documents. Brandon wasn't just Cyrus's lawyer. He was a strategic partner in several business ventures, a man who understood that legal battles were won before they ever reached a courtroom. "Delilah sent everything over this morning," Brandon said, spreading papers across the dining room table. "It's a mess, Cyrus, but it gives us leverage." The documents revealed that Raymond had been systematically embezzling from his investment clients for nearly 3 years, longer than the affair had been ongoing. Even more disturbing was the evidence that Naomi had been actively assisting him in laundering money through shell companies registered under variations of her maiden name. The money they had taken from Cyrus's joint accounts was just the surface. "They were using your business reputation as cover for something bigger," Brandon explained, showing Cyrus transaction records. Cyrus's expression hardened as he examined the paperwork. "They were planning to frame me if things went south." Brandon nodded grimly. "These duplicate contracts with your company letterhead, but subtle differences in the terms? Classic setup for fraud allegations. If their plan had worked, you'd be fighting criminal charges while they disappeared with the assets and the kids." The realization that his wife had not only betrayed their marriage but had actively participated in setting him up for financial ruin and potential imprisonment ignited something cold and methodical in Cyrus's mind. "Options?" he asked simply, as he outlined several approaches, from immediate legal action to more strategic countermeasures. "The problem is, going public means exposing everything, including their fabricated allegations against you," Brandon explained. "The investigation alone could damage your business reputation, and the kids would be caught in the crossfire." Cyrus thought about how Aiden was already struggling, and before they could continue, they were interrupted by the doorbell. When Cyrus answered, he found Veronica Preston standing on his doorstep, her face a mixture of fury and anguish. "Where's he?" she demanded, pushing past Cyrus into the foyer. "Where's my husband?" Cyrus led her into the living room and offered her a seat, but she refused. "I assume you figured it out." "Figured out that my sister and my husband have been." Veronica couldn't finish the sentence. "Raymond didn't come home last night, and Naomi's not answering my calls. Then I found records of an apartment lease in Phoenix with both their names." "When did you discover this?" Cyrus asked, studying Veronica closely. "This morning," Veronica replied, her voice breaking. "I came straight here. I thought maybe it was a mistake, that there was some explanation." "There isn't," Cyrus interrupted gently. "It's been going on for 2 years, Veronica. I only confirmed it myself yesterday." Veronica collapsed onto the sofa, her composure crumbling. 2 years? How could I not have seen it?" "We see what we expect to see," Cyrus said, pouring her a glass of water. "The question is, what do you plan to do now?" Her eyes met his, sudden understanding dawning. "You're not just letting them get away with this." "No," Cyrus confirmed. "I'm not." The conversation with Veronica revealed more pieces of the puzzle. She'd noticed financial discrepancies in their accounts months ago, but Raymond had dismissed her concerns with plausible explanations. She had also found hotel receipts for business trips that Raymond claimed were legitimate, but the same hotels were documented in the texts between him and Naomi. "I feel like such a fool," Veronica whispered. "All those times they were together while we were watching the kids, or working." Cyrus recognized the same pain. He felt the humiliation of being deceived by the people closest to them. What they did reflects on them, not us. After Veronica left, promising to consider Cyrus's proposal for a united front, he made another call, this time to Fletcher Boyd, his most trusted project manager. "Fletch, I need you to take over operations for a few weeks," Cyrus instructed. "Family emergency." "Everything okay, boss?" Fletcher asked, concern evident in his voice. "It will be," Cyrus replied. "But I need to focus on my kids right now." With the business temporarily handled, Cyrus retrieved the children from Liam's house. Sabrina ran to him immediately, wrapping her arms around his waist. Aiden hung back, uncertainty written across his face. "As Mom called?" he asked hopefully. "Not yet, buddy," Cyrus answered honestly. "But we need to talk about what happens next." That evening, Cyrus sat both children down and explained, as gently as possible, that their mother's choices meant their family would look different moving forward. He was careful not to demonize Naomi, despite his own feelings, knowing the children needed to process the situation without additional burdens. "Are we poor now?" Sabrina asked suddenly, catching Cyrus off guard. "No, princess. Why would you think that?" "I heard Mom telling Uncle Raymond that you'd have nothing left," Sabrina explained, her perceptiveness once again revealing how much she'd observed. "She said you'd lose everything." The innocent revelation of such callous planning only strengthened Cyrus's resolve. His children had been witnessing more than anyone realized, carrying knowledge no child should bear. "We're going to be fine," Cyrus assured them both. "I promise you that." Later that night, after the children were asleep, Cyrus received a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Meet tomorrow. Neutral location." It was from Naomi. Cyrus didn't respond immediately, instead reviewing the comprehensive strategy he and Brandon had developed. The next move was critical, not just for his retribution, but for protecting his children from the fallout. He finally replied with a time and location, a coffee shop in a busy shopping center where their conversation would need to remain civil. Then he called Delilah Frost again. "I need surveillance on a meeting," he instructed, "and I need to know who else Naomi contacts between now and then." Delilah's response was immediate and professional. "Already on it. Regarding the financial records you requested, we found the connection and are sending the details now." The information that appeared in Cyrus's inbox minutes later confirmed his worst fears. The betrayal went beyond personal infidelity. It was a calculated effort to destroy everything he had built, orchestrated by the woman who had once vowed to stand by him. Cyrus closed his laptop and walked to the window, gazing out at the quiet street where he had built his home and raised his family. The neighbors had no idea of the war being waged behind closed doors, the strategic moves and countermoves that would determine not just his future, but his children's as well. Tomorrow would mark the first public battle in what promised to be a long and complex campaign. But Cyrus had something Naomi and Raymond didn't: absolute clarity about what he was fighting for and what he was willing to sacrifice to win. As he turned from the window, his phone buzzed with a message from Brandon. "Documents filed. Clock starts tomorrow." Cyrus allowed himself a grim smile. Naomi thought she was setting up a negotiation. She had no idea she was walking into an ambush of her own making. The Denver Coffee Collective was buzzing with morning energy when Cyrus arrived 15 minutes early for his meeting with Naomi. He chose a table in the corner, visible enough to discourage a scene, but private enough for conversation. Delilah Frost sat 3 tables away, seemingly absorbed in her laptop, but strategically positioned to observe and record if needed. Cyrus spotted Naomi the moment she walked in. She had dressed carefully in a conservative blue dress, attempting to project an image of the wrong party rather than the betrayer. Her eyes scanned the coffee shop, momentarily widening when she noticed Delilah, then refocusing on Cyrus. "Who's your friend?" Naomi asked as she sat down, nodding toward Delilah. "Insurance," Cyrus replied simply. "You didn't come alone either," he added, subtly gesturing toward the window where Raymond sat in his Range Rover across the street, pretending to be on a phone call, but clearly watching the coffee shop. "Raymond is concerned for my safety," Naomi said defensively. "After how you behaved at the cabin." Cyrus interrupted. "Let's skip the performance. We both know why we're here." Naomi's carefully composed expression faltered before she regained control. "The children need stability. This hostile approach isn't helping anyone." "Interesting," Cyrus remarked, coming from the woman who planned to disappear with them to Arizona. He paused. "But you're right about one thing. They do need stability. That's non-negotiable." Naomi leaned forward. "I'm their mother, Cyrus. Courts favor mothers. Cyrus acknowledged her point. Courts do favor mothers. But they also take a dim view of parents involved in financial fraud and attempting to flee the state with children during divorce proceedings. The color drained from Naomi's face. You're bluffing. Cyrus slid a manila envelope across the table. These were filed with the court this morning, emergency custody petition based on flight risk and criminal investigation. Naomi opened the envelope with trembling fingers, scanning the documents inside. Her expression shifted from confidence to shock, then to calculation as she processed the legal maneuver. This won't stand, she said finally. We have explanations for everything. Character witnesses. You're just trying to intimidate me. Am I? Cyrus asked mildly. Page might interest you. The judge granted the temporary order. I have sole physical custody until the hearing next week. You can have supervised visitation until then. Naomi's composure cracked. You can't do this. The children need me. They needed you when you were planning to uproot them from their school, their friends, and their family for your affair, Cyrus countered. They needed you when you were willing to destroy their father to cover your tracks. It wasn't like that, Naomi protested, lowering her voice as nearby patrons glanced their way. Raymond and we fell in love. These things happen. Love doesn't involve embezzlement and fraud, Cyrus replied evenly, or setting up your children's father to take the fall for your crimes. Naomi's eyes darted around the coffee shop, calculating her options. What do you want, Cyrus? Money? The house? Name your price. The suggestion that everything his marriage, his family, his relationship with his children could be reduced to a transaction confirmed everything Cyrus needed to know about the woman he'd married. I want my children protected, he stated. I want what's rightfully theirs secured, and I want you and Raymond to face the consequences of your actions. Naomi's expression hardened. Raymond has connections. Powerful ones. You're just a contractor with some local success, Cyrus. Don't overestimate your position. Interesting you should mention his connections, Cyrus replied, sliding another document across the table. Like Senator Weber, whose campaign funds were among those Raymond misappropriated, or Douglas Hamilton at First Federal, who's already cooperating with investigators to save himself. The names visibly shook Naomi. How did you? She began. Delilah is very thorough, Cyrus explained, nodding toward the PI. And people like Raymond always leave trails when they think they're too clever to get caught. Naomi glanced toward the window, where Raymond was now standing beside his vehicle, watching intently. Her hand moved toward her purse. Before you text him to come rescue you, Cyrus said, you should know that Brandon Wells is meeting with the district attorney right now. The only question is whether you're going down with Raymond or cutting a deal. A deal? Naomi repeated, her attention suddenly focused. Cyrus laid out his terms. Naomi would relinquish primary custody, agree to supervised visitation until a psychological evaluation deemed it appropriate for more, surrender all claims to his business assets, and cooperate with authorities regarding Raymond's financial crimes. In exchange, Cyrus concluded, I won't pursue charges against you directly, provided the money taken from our accounts is returned specifically the children's college funds. Naomi stared at him, measuring his resolve. And if I refuse? She asked. Then the DA gets everything along with evidence of your active participation in the scheme. The text messages where you suggested using my business's cover, the forged documents with my signature that you notarized yourself. For the first time, genuine fear appeared in Naomi's eyes. You'd send me to prison? She whispered. The mother of your children? Cyrus reminded her. You were willing to send me there. The difference is, I'm offering you a way out for the kids' sake, not yours. The coffee shop had grown quieter, as if the other patrons sensed the gravity of the conversation happening in the corner. Naomi's phone buzzed with a text from Raymond, visible on the screen. Everything okay? It's your choice, Cyrus said, standing to leave. Brandon will contact your attorney with the formal offer. You have 24 hours before we proceed with the criminal complaint. As Cyrus walked past Delilah's table, he gave a subtle nod. She would monitor Naomi, tracking her next moves. Outside, Cyrus deliberately walked past Raymond's Range Rover, making eye contact with the man who had helped destroy his marriage. Raymond rolled down his window. This isn't over, Monroe. Actually, for you. It is, Cyrus replied calmly. The only question left was how hard she would fall. Back at home, Cyrus found Liam overseeing the children in the backyard. Aiden was showing an unexpected patience as he helped Sabrina learn to shoot baskets. His earlier sullen demeanor had been replaced by a moment of brotherly affection. How'd it go? Liam asked as Cyrus joined him on the patio. Phase 1 complete, Cyrus replied. Now we wait. The wait didn't last long. By evening, Cyrus had received calls from 2 attorneys, Naomi's hastily hired divorce lawyer trying to negotiate better terms, and Raymond's criminal defense attorney asking about possible evidence. Cyrus directed both to Brandon Wells. maintaining the same disciplined approach that had served him throughout his career. When emotional decisions were needed, he made them with his children's long-term well-being as the only priority. 3 days later, the hammer dropped. Federal agents arrested Raymond Preston at his office, charging him with wire fraud, embezzlement, and money laundering. The news quickly spread throughout Denver's business community, including to Aiden, who found out from a text sent by a classmate before Cyrus could explain. The confrontation that followed tested Cyrus's determination to shield his children from the darker side of the situation. "You got Uncle Raymond arrested," Aiden accused, storming into Cyrus's home office. "Mom called. She said you're trying to destroy them because you're jealous." Cyrus set aside the contracts he'd been reviewing. "Sit down, Aiden." "No," Aiden shouted, tears welling up in his eyes. "You're ruining everything. Mom says once you calm down, we can all be adults about this. She says you're being vindictive." Cyrus's voice grew firm. "Sit down." Something in his father's tone broke through Aiden's anger. The boy dropped into the chair opposite Cyrus's desk, his teenage defiance battling with the respect he'd always felt for his father. "Uncle Raymond was arrested because he stole money from his clients," Cyrus explained calmly, "including your college fund. That has nothing to do with his relationship with your mother." "Mom says you're making it all up," Aiden countered, though with less conviction. Cyrus unlocked his desk drawer, pulling out a file and sliding it across the table to his son. "These are bank statements showing transfers from your education account to an offshore account. These are payments your mother authorized." Aiden stared at the documents, disbelief shifting into confusion. "But why would she?" "Because she and Raymond needed money to start their new life," Cyrus explained gently. "And they didn't plan on taking financial responsibility for you or Sabrina once they left." The boy's face crumpled as the truth began to sink in. "She told me we were all going to Phoenix," Aiden whispered, his voice cracking. "That you were trying to stop us because you were controlling." Cyrus moved around the desk, kneeling beside his son. "I would never stop you from seeing your mother, Aiden. But I will stop anyone your mother included from hurting you or Sabrina." For the first time since the ordeal began, Aiden broke down completely, collapsing into his father's arms. The walls of teenage independence crumbled as he sobbed against Cyrus's shoulder. "I thought it was your fault," Aiden choked out. "Mom kept saying if you weren't so obsessed with work, if you paid more attention to her." "Your mother made her choices," Cyrus said, holding his son tightly. "And now we all have to live with the consequences. But we'll do it together." That night, Cyrus received the call he had been waiting for from Brandon. "She's accepted the terms full custody to you, supervised visitation, financial settlement, as outlined. She's also agreed to cooperate regarding Raymond's case." "And Raymond?" Cyrus asked, bracing himself. "Facing 20 years, Brandon replied. "Unless he makes a deal, which seems unlikely given the evidence trail. His attorney is still trying to figure out how we got so much documentation so quickly." After hanging up, Cyrus sat on his back porch, watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky. The first phase of his plan had exceeded expectations, leveraging the legal system to deliver consequences his betrayers couldn't escape. But financial ruin and legal jeopardy weren't enough, not for what they'd done to his children, not for how they'd planned to discard him once he had served his purpose in their scheme. Cyrus's phone buzzed with a text from Delilah Frost. "Phase 2 preparations complete. Awaiting your signal." He typed back a single word: "Tomorrow." The trap had been set. Now it was time to spring it. 2 weeks after Raymond's arrest, the media frenzy had begun to die down. The financial scandal had made headlines across Colorado. Prominent investment advisor arrested. Wealthy clients defrauded. Connections to political figures exposed. Raymond remained in federal custody, denied bail due to flight risk after prosecutors revealed the Arizona apartment lease and evidence of inquiries about non-extradition countries. Naomi had retreated to a small rented condo across town. Her social media accounts, once full of carefully curated posts about their perfect family life, had gone silent. Her cooperation with authorities had spared her from criminal charges, but her reputation among their social circle was in ruins. The polished image she had maintained for years was shattered, exposing the manipulative person beneath. Cyrus, meanwhile, had kept a dignified silence, focused on stabilizing his children's lives and ensuring his business continued to run smoothly. To the outside world, he appeared as the wronged husband facing adversity with admirable restraint. Exactly the impression he wanted to give. Few realized that Cyrus was simply setting the stage for what came next. On a rainy Tuesday morning, Cyrus sat in Brandon Wells's office, reviewing the final paperwork for the divorce settlement. Naomi had given up nearly everything in exchange for immunity and a modest monthly stipend, enough for her to live a middle-class lifestyle far from the luxury she had grown used to, but better than a prison cell. She signed everything, and Brandon confirmed, sliding the documents across his desk. Full custody is yours, with supervised visitation twice monthly until the family court evaluator approves a change. All financial terms as we outlined. Cyrus nodded and signed where indicated. Any word from her attorney about the visitation schedule? Here's the interesting part, Brandon replied, leaning back in his chair. She's requested a delay for the first visit, claiming she needs time to process everything before seeing the kids. Processor failure, you mean? Cyrus said with a sly smile. Delay granted. The kids need stability right now, not her dramatics. After concluding the meeting, Cyrus drove to a nondescript office building on the outskirts of Denver, where Delilah Frost ran her investigation firm. Contrary to her online profile, her actual operation occupied the entire top floor, a sophisticated command center staffed by former intelligence and law enforcement professionals. The final surveillance reports, Delilah said without preamble as Cyrus entered her private office. She slid a tablet across the desk, displaying photos of Naomi meeting with various individuals over the past 2 weeks. She's reached out to 7 of Raymond's former associates, all of whom declined further contact after their initial meetings. She's looking for leverage, Cyrus observed as he scanned the images. Or money, Delilah added. Most interesting is this one, she said, swiping to a photo of Naomi with an older, well-dressed man outside an upscale restaurant. Gerald Hoffman, a real estate developer with ties to the same political circles Raymond used to exploit. Has she made any progress with him? 3 meetings so far, Delilah confirmed. Our sources indicate she's offering information in exchange for help. Cyrus's expression remained neutral. Information about what? About you. Delilah pulled up an audio file. We managed to capture portions of their last conversation. She's suggesting she has evidence that you were complicit in some of Raymond's schemes, saying you turned on them when you discovered the affair, but were originally a willing participant. The recording played, and Naomi's voice came through clearly. He knows more than he's admitting. I can prove it if you help me get back on my feet. Cyrus listened without reacting outwardly, though internally, his anger sharpened into something colder. Even now, after everything, Naomi was trying to destroy him to save herself. She's desperate, Delilah commented, making claims she can't back up, but still, they could be damaging. Especially to the business. If clients get nervous, Cyrus replied. Delilah studied him closely. You anticipated this. I anticipated everything, Cyrus confirmed, including what comes next. From his briefcase, Cyrus withdrew a sealed envelope and placed it on Delilah's desk. This contains final payment for your services, plus the bonus we discussed. Your work has been exemplary. Delilah didn't touch the envelope. Phase 2 moves forward tonight. Yes, Cyrus replied simply. Everything is prepared. Delilah nodded and pulled up a detailed file on her computer. Your friend Liam has handled the physical arrangements as specified. The digital infrastructure is in place. Timing will be critical. It always is, Cyrus replied, standing to leave. One chance to do this right. That evening, Cyrus followed his usual routine with the children dinner at home, helping with homework, Sabrina's bedtime story, and a brief conversation with Aiden about his upcoming basketball tournament. The domesticity provided both cover and motivation for what would follow once the house was quiet. At precisely 11:30 p.m., after confirming both children were asleep, Cyrus went to his home office and initiated a secure connection on a laptop that wasn't connected to his home network. The screen displayed a simple interface with a countdown timer and the message, Operation Active, awaiting confirmation. Cyrus typed a 6-digit authorization code and pressed enter. The screen changed, now showing multiple video feeds. Naomi's condo exterior, the building lobby, and the hallway outside her unit. A separate window displayed a GPS tracker indicating Gerald Hoffman was at his home across town. Cyrus sent a text to an unlisted number, proceed. Minutes later, a maintenance van appeared on the condo's surveillance feed. 2 men in uniform exited, carrying toolboxes into the building. Cyrus watched through the lobby camera as they briefly spoke with the night security guard, who nodded and buzzed them through after verifying their credentials. These weren't ordinary maintenance workers. They were former military operatives now working in private security, associates of Liam's who specialized in discreet operations. Their goal tonight wasn't theft or violence, but something far more valuable information. For 45 minutes, Cyrus monitored their progress through the surveillance system, watching as they executed a flawless entry into Naomi's condo while she was out meeting friends. Delilah had confirmed the gathering would last until at least 1 a.m. The men worked methodically photographing documents, cloning electronic devices, and installing nearly undetectable surveillance equipment before leaving with the same efficiency they'd arrived with. At 12:32 a.m., Cyrus's phone buzzed with a message, package secured. By morning, Cyrus had full access to everything Naomi's new email accounts, text messages, financial records, and most importantly, the fabricated evidence she intended to use against him. The documents were clearly altered versions of legitimate business contracts from Cyrus's company, tampered with to implicate him in Raymond's crimes. What Naomi hadn't realized was that the original, unaltered versions of those contracts were stored in blockchain-verified digital vaults, securing their authenticity with timestamps. Her sloppy forgeries would only incriminate her further if she attempted to use them. But Cyrus had no intention of waiting for that to happen. The information gathered completed his strategy, including details of Naomi's upcoming meeting with Gerald Hoffman. She planned to present her false evidence in exchange for financial support to restart her life. At 7:30 a.m., Cyrus called Liam. "It's time for the final phase. Are your people ready?" "On standby," Liam confirmed. "Delilah sent over the intel package this morning. Clean operation, just like we planned." "Good," Cyrus replied. "Execution begins tomorrow at 4 p.m. Liam hesitated before asking, "Are you sure about this, Cyrus?" "They crossed that line first," Cyrus interrupted, his voice cold with finality. "When they tried to steal my children's future, when they plotted to frame me for their crimes, when they betrayed everything I built." "Understood," Liam acknowledged. "We'll be ready." That afternoon, Cyrus attended Aiden's basketball game, cheered at Sabrina's dance recital, and hosted a small birthday celebration for her with a few of her school friends. To anyone watching, he was simply a devoted father, rebuilding his family's life after betrayal, not a man orchestrating an elaborate trap, preparing to close in on those who had wronged him. As he tucked Sabrina into bed that night, she asked the question that had hung in the air between them. "Dad, is Mom ever coming back home?" Cyrus smoothed her hair gently. "No, Princess. Mama's made different choices for her life now." Sabrina considered this with a seriousness beyond her years. "Is it because she loves Uncle Raymond more than us?" The question struck Cyrus like a blow, exposing the raw wound beneath his calm exterior. "Your mom loves you, Sabrina," he said softly. "She just made mistakes that can't be undone. Like when I broke your special picture frame and tried to hide it." Cyrus smiled sadly. "Bigger mistakes than that. Adult mistakes." Sabrina nodded as though this explanation satisfied her. "I'm glad you're not going anywhere, Daddy." "Never," Cyrus promised, kissing her forehead. "Not ever." After both children were asleep, Cyrus returned to his home office. The surveillance feeds from Naomi's condo showed her pacing anxiously while on the phone. The directional microphones from the previous night captured her conversation clearly. "Tomorrow at 4 o'clock, Gerald." "Yes, I have everything prepared." "No, Cyrus has no idea. The documents prove he knew everything Raymond was doing." "Yes, enough leverage to force a renegotiation of the settlement." Cyrus allowed himself a cold smile as he activated the final protocol on his secure laptop. A countdown timer appeared, 18 hours and 24 minutes, counting down to tomorrow afternoon. The spider had spun his web. Now it was time for the flies to become entangled. The Athletherton Hotel's lobby radiated timeless elegance: marble floors, mahogany paneling, and discreet staff who instinctively recognized wealth and power without needing to be told. At 3:45 p.m., Cyrus settled into one of the high-backed leather chairs, positioning himself perfectly to observe both the main entrance and the elevators leading to the private meeting rooms upstairs. His tailored charcoal suit projected the image of a successful businessman, a persona he rarely embraced but could effortlessly adopt when needed. A folded Wall Street Journal sat untouched beside him. His focus was on the hotel's revolving door. At precisely 3:52 p.m., Naomi entered. She had dressed carefully for the occasion in a conservative navy dress, understated jewelry, and a hairstyle meant to project competence rather than her usual calculated glamour. The portfolio clutched in her manicured hands contained what she believed was her salvation documents implicating Cyrus and Raymond's schemes. Cyrus watched as she approached the reception desk to confirm her meeting with Gerald Hoffman in Executive Suite 3. The receptionist directed her to the elevators with practiced politeness. Naomi didn't notice Cyrus as she passed within 15 feet of him, her mind focused on rehearsing her pitch. Once she entered the elevator, Cyrus checked his phone. A secure messaging app displayed an update from Liam. "All assets in position. Hoffman arrived through the service entrance 10 minutes ago." Cyrus responded, proceeding as planned. At 4:10 p.m., Cyrus took the elevator to the third floor. Nodding at the plainclothes security officer station near the emergency exit, another one of Liam's associates, ensuring everything unfolded smoothly. The hallway was empty except for a maintenance cart strategically placed outside Executive Suite 3. It appeared to be abandoned by hotel staff, but in reality, it contained surveillance equipment monitoring the meeting inside. Cyrus approached the suite, withdrawing an electronic key card provided by the hotel's head of security, a former client who owed him a significant favor. He paused, listening to the voices inside through an earpiece connected to the surveillance system. These documents clearly show Cyrus Monroe's signature authorizing transactions related to the diverted funds. Naomi's voice was confident. He was fully aware of Raymond's activities, but turned on him when he discovered our relationship. Gerald Hoffman's response was measured, skeptical. These are serious allegations, Mrs. Monroe. If authentic, they contradict the narrative that's been established in the media and with prosecutors. That's why they're valuable, Naomi pressed. Cyrus has cultivated this image of the wronged husband, the dedicated father, victimized by his wife and brother-in-law. These prove otherwise. And what exactly do you want from me in exchange for this information? Hoffman asked. Financial backing to restart my life, Naomi replied without hesitation. And your connections to force a renegotiation of my divorce settlement. The trap was set. Cyrus swiped the key card and entered the suite without knocking. Naomi's face shifted from shock to fear as he calmly walked into the room. Hoffman, a silver-haired man in his 60s with the weathered features of someone accustomed to power, displayed only mild surprise. I believe I'm right on time, Cyrus said pleasantly, as if he had been invited. Naomi, he added. Naomi gasped, instinctively gathering the documents spread across the table. How did you? Mr. Hoffman and I have mutual interests, Cyrus interrupted, extending his hand to the older man. Thank you for arranging this meeting. Hoffman stood and shook Cyrus's hand firmly. Mr. Monroe, your reputation precedes you. Naomi looked between the two men, comprehension dawning slowly. You know each other? Not personally. Until today, Cyrus clarified, taking a seat at the table. But Mr. Hoffman contacted my attorney yesterday after you approached him with your proposition, Cyrus said, his voice calm but unwavering. The color drained from Naomi's face. Gerald, whatever he's told you. Hoffman raised a hand, silencing her. I've known Thomas Preston, Raymond's father, for 30 years. When his daughter-in-law came to me claiming to have evidence that contradicted everything the authorities have established, I did my due diligence. This is a setup, Naomi accused, standing abruptly. I'm leaving. I wouldn't, Cyrus advised, his tone cool. Not unless you want to explain those forged documents to the FBI agents waiting for you in the lobby. As if on cue, Cyrus's phone buzzed with a message from Delilah, federal agents on standby. Evidence package delivered. Naomi sank back into her chair, her face pale as the reality of her situation began to sink in. You planned this. I planned for everything, Cyrus corrected, including your attempts to frame me after securing your immunity deal. Hoffman leaned forward. Mrs. Monroe, I agreed to this meeting not to help you, but to understand the full extent of the situation affecting a family I've known for decades. What I've seen today confirms everything Mr. Monroe told me. What's that? Naomi challenged. That you're willing to destroy anyone, Hoffman stated flatly, including the father of your children, to save yourself. He paused. The documents you presented are obvious forgeries. Coming here today wasn't just foolish, it's attempted fraud and a violation of your immunity agreement. Cyrus placed his own folder on the table. These are the original blockchain-verified contracts, with immutable timestamps. Alongside them are records of your activities since Raymond's arrest, including your meetings with his former associates and your explicit statements about fabricating evidence against me. Naomi's facade finally shattered. What do you want from me? She asked, her voice faltering. Haven't you taken enough? I've taken nothing that wasn't rightfully mine, or our children's, Cyrus replied, his voice devoid of emotion. But you're right. This meeting isn't about taking more. It's about ensuring you understand your position moving forward. He slid a document across the table, an amended custody agreement, with terms even more restrictive than the original. You'll sign this now, relinquishing all visitation rights until a court-appointed psychiatrist certifies that you're no longer a harmful influence on our children. You'll also sign a sworn affidavit confirming that the documents you presented today are forgeries created solely by you. And if I refuse? Naomi asked, though her voice lacked conviction. Then Mr. Hoffman will testify about this meeting. The federal agents downstairs will receive the evidence of your attempted fraud, and your immunity deal will be voided, Cyrus stated matter-of-factly. You'll join Raymond in federal custody by nightfall. Hoffman stood, buttoning his suit jacket. I've seen enough, Mr. Monroe. I'll leave you to conclude your business. My statement has been recorded as agreed. He nodded toward a small device on the table, disguised as a pen holder. After Hoffman left, Cyrus and Naomi sat in silence for several moments. The woman who had once shared his bed for 15 years now looked hollow, her makeup unable to hide the growing lines of stress and fear. You've thought of everything, she finally said, her hands trembling as she reached for the documents. Not everything, Cyrus replied. I never thought you'd try to take my children from me. I never thought you'd try to destroy everything I built. Those were your innovations. As Naomi signed the papers, tears finally breaking through her composed exterior, she asked the question that had clearly been haunting her. Did you ever love me, Cyrus? Really love me? Cyrus paused, contemplating the question. I loved who I thought you were. But that person never existed. Once the documents were signed, Cyrus gathered them into his briefcase. The agents downstairs will escort you home. Your belongings will be delivered to your sister's house in Greenwich tomorrow. You're not to return to Denver without written permission from the court. Veronica won't take me in, Naomi protested. Not after everything. She's your sister, Cyrus replied coldly. And unlike you, she understands family loyalty. The arrangement is already made. As Cyrus turned to leave, Naomi made one final attempt. The children will ask for me. Sabrina will cry for her mother. Cyrus paused at the door, allowing himself a brief moment of genuine emotion. Yes, they will. And that pain, their pain that you caused, is something I can never forgive. Not if I lived 1,000 years. The hotel corridor was empty as Cyrus walked toward the elevator, his footsteps echoing on the marble floor. Inside, he allowed himself a moment to close his eyes, exhaling slowly, releasing the tension from the confrontation. When the elevator doors opened to the lobby, he was composed again. Delilah Frost was waiting near the entrance, pretending to review documents on a tablet. As Cyrus approached, she stepped beside him without acknowledging him directly. Raymond received the evidence package at the detention center an hour ago, she murmured. His attorney has already contacted the prosecutors about a potential deal. Too late, Cyrus replied, his voice barely audible as they crossed the lobby. The senator withdrew his support this morning. No deals. Outside, Liam waited by the car, opening the door as Cyrus approached. Once inside, as they moved through downtown traffic, Liam asked the question. Is it done? Cyrus nodded, loosening his tie. It's done. She's finished. And the children? Delilah asked. We'll never have to see her again unless they choose to when they're older, Cyrus replied. The psychiatric evaluation requirement ensures no judge will override it, given the evidence we've gathered. The car drove through the city toward Cyrus's home, where Mrs. Henderson, an older widow who cared for the children after school, would be preparing dinner with Sabrina helping to monitor Aiden's homework. As Denver's skyline faded behind them, Cyrus reflected on the past month, the discovery, the betrayal, the calculated response. He had dismantled the conspiracy against him, turning his enemies' weapons back on them. Some might view his actions as excessive, even cruel. But those people hadn't seen Sabrina's tears when she realized her mother was willing to abandon her. They hadn't witnessed Aiden's confusion and pain when he learned of the lies he'd been told. They hadn't felt the cold determination that comes from knowing your children's future had been gambled away by the people who should have protected them most. Any regrets? Liam asked quietly as they turned into Cyrus's neighborhood. Cyrus looked out the window at his home, the lights glowing warmly in the windows, Sabrina's bicycle propped against the garage door, and the basketball hoop where he and Aiden had begun reconnecting during evening games. Not a single one, Cyrus answered with absolute certainty. The spider had sprung his trap. The web had held. Justice cold, implacable justice had been served. 6 months later, Denver awoke to a crisp, clear morning. Sunlight sparkled on the fresh layer of snow that had fallen overnight. Cyrus stood by the kitchen window, coffee in hand, watching Sabrina and Aiden in the backyard as they built a snowman. Their laughter floated through the glass, an increasingly familiar sound as the wounds of betrayal slowly began to heal. The doorbell rang, signaling the arrival of Brandon Wells for their quarterly review. Cyrus greeted his attorney with a firm handshake and led him to the home office, where financial reports and legal documents were already laid out on the desk. The business is thriving, Brandon noted, scanning the documents. 3 major contracts signed since the start of the year. Looks like the scandal didn't hurt your reputation after all. If anything, it helped, Cyrus replied, settling into his chair. Clients respect clarity. They know I don't tolerate dishonesty at any level. Brandon nodded, then turned to more personal matters. Raymond's sentencing is next week. Prosecutors are recommending the maximum 25 years given the scope of the fraud and the number of victims. Good, Cyrus said without hesitation. And Naomi, Brandon continued, she's still living with Veronica in Greenwich. The court-appointed psychiatrist submitted his 3rd report yesterday. He slid a folder across the desk. He still advises against reinstating visitation. Notes her continued refusal to accept responsibility or acknowledge the emotional damage to the children. Cyrus read the summary without expression, though inside, he felt a grim satisfaction. The carefully constructed system was delivering the results he had engineered. She's filed for another hearing, Brandon added. Judge Winters denied it. He made it clear he needs to see substantial behavioral change before even considering a revision to the custody agreement. Which won't happen, Cyrus said, Not while she's still in contact with Raymond through intermediaries. Brandon raised an eyebrow. Delilah's still monitoring? Some things are worth the cost, Cyrus said flatly. The children's safety isn't negotiable. After wrapping up the meeting, Cyrus walked Brandon to the door. As they passed the living room, Brandon paused to glance at the family photos on the mantel, new images of Cyrus with the kids at various outings, their smiles broader, their eyes brighter than in the past. You've rebuilt well, Brandon remarked. Not many could have steered this outcome from such a wreck. Cyrus's expression didn't change. I protected what mattered. Nothing more. Once Brandon had gone, Cyrus stepped into the backyard to join the children. Sabrina immediately pulled him into their snowman project, instructing him to find proper sticks for arms while Aiden focused on shaping the snowman's head. Dad, can we invite Uncle Liam and his family for dinner tonight? Aiden asked. His relationship with Cyrus had deepened over the past months. The distant, withdrawn boy had become engaged and eager for his father's attention. Sure, Cyrus said, helping to lift the snowman's head into place. I'll give him a call once we finish this masterpiece. Sabrina worked with quiet intensity, her creativity flourishing since the separation. The child therapist Cyrus had brought in observed how Sabrina processed her emotions through art and imaginative play, and how remarkably resilient she was. Dad, does Mom ever ask about us? She asked suddenly, catching Cyrus off guard. He crouched down beside her, choosing his words with care. She does. She asks the judge and the doctors when she can see you again, Cyrus said gently. But she doesn't call, Sabrina noted quietly, or send letters. The court has rules about that right now, Cyrus explained, maintaining the careful story he had built for her. Remember what Dr. Martinez said? Mom has to get better first. Sabrina nodded thoughtfully. Like when you're sick and have to take all your medicine before you can go back to school. Something like that, Cyrus replied, grateful for her understanding. Aiden, now 14, wasn't so easily reassured. Later that evening, after dinner with Liam's family, he found Cyrus in the study reviewing blueprints for a new project. I read some articles online, Aiden said, not bothering with small talk. About Mom and Raymond. About what they did. Cyrus set the papers aside, turning his full attention to his son. I see. What do you want to ask? They stole money, Aiden said bluntly. From a lot of people. And they tried to blame you. Yes, Cyrus confirmed. That's exactly what happened. Aiden hesitated, then asked the question that had clearly been weighing on him. Would Mom really have let you go to prison? While she and Raymond took me and Sabrina to Arizona. Cyrus considered softening the truth, but he chose honesty instead. Aiden had earned that. The evidence suggests that was their plan. Yes. Aiden sank into the leather chair across from the desk, the weight of the confirmation settling over him. How does someone change like that? He asked. She was our mom. She used to make pancakes on Sundays. Help us with school projects. People are complicated, Cyrus said carefully. Sometimes they hide who they really are for a long time. And sometimes they change when they think they've found something they want more than what they already have. Did you hate her? Aiden asked quietly. When you found out. Cyrus paused, remembering those early days of shock and betrayal. I was angry, hurt, deeply disappointed. But mostly I was focused on protecting you and Sabrina. By making sure she couldn't see us anymore. By making sure she couldn't hurt you anymore, Cyrus corrected gently. There's a difference. Aiden nodded slowly. I used to be mad at you. Thought it was your fault. That you broke up our family. That you made Mom leave. I know, Cyrus said. That's a normal way to feel. Aiden looked him in the eyes. But you didn't break anything. They did. The quiet statement, delivered with the blunt clarity only a teenager could offer, hit Cyrus harder than he expected. For months, he had carried out his response with ruthless precision, never allowing himself to fully process the emotional wreckage left behind. Aiden's simple words didn't offer forgiveness, not for Naomi, not for Raymond, but they sparked something else. A release. A loosening of the cold fury that had kept him locked in place. Thank you, Cyrus said quietly. Later that night, after both kids had gone to bed, Cyrus sat outside on the back porch, braving the cold beneath a sky of scattered stars. His phone buzzed with a message from Delilah Frost. Final surveillance contract expires tomorrow. Renew? Cyrus stared at the screen for a long moment. For half a year, he had kept tabs on Naomi's every move, partly for security, partly as the last hold on a situation that had once threatened to unravel his entire world. Finally, he typed his response. No renewal needed. Final report is sufficient. It wasn't forgiveness. Cyrus Monroe did not forgive betrayal. But it was something else. The quiet acknowledgement that the war was over. And he had won. Naomi and Raymond would never recover from the devastation Cyrus had orchestrated. Their punishment would persist, even without his continued involvement. The following morning brought grim news. Raymond Preston had attempted suicide in his prison cell after learning that his final appeal for leniency had been denied. He survived the attempt, but would remain under medical supervision in the prison's infirmary until his sentencing. Liam delivered the update, but Cyrus's expression remained unchanged, as it had throughout the long ordeal. "Keep me updated," was all he said. Later that day, at the construction site of his latest initiative, a community center partially funded from his own pocket, Cyrus walked the grounds with quiet satisfaction. The foundation had been poured with precision, and the structure was steadily rising against the cold Colorado sky. Fletcher Boyd approached, hard hat tucked under his arm. "Structure's looking good, boss. We're ahead of schedule, whether or not." "Excellent," Cyrus replied with a nod. "The children's wing is the priority. I want the roof sealed before the next storm hits." As they moved through the site, discussing logistics and material deliveries, Cyrus felt something he hadn't in months: genuine interest. The single-minded focus he had maintained during the long campaign of justice and retribution had drained him. Now, that energy could be repurposed for building, not dismantling. That evening, as Cyrus helped Sabrina with a sprawling science project, a model of the solar system that had completely taken over the dining room, his phone rang. Seeing Veronica Preston's name on the screen, he stepped into the hallway, immediately alert. Her voice was tense. "I thought you should hear this from me first. Naomi's gone." "Gone where?" he asked sharply. "No one knows," Veronica replied. "She left a note. Said she couldn't live with what she'd done. Took her passport and what cash she had saved. Police are looking, but—" Cyrus absorbed the information quickly, assessing the legal implications, the potential disruption to the custody and psychiatric determinations he had fought to cement. "When did this happen?" "Last night," Veronica said, after she found out about Raymond's suicide attempt. "I've already informed the court through her attorney." The call ended, and Cyrus remained still in the hallway, the weight of the news settling in. Naomi's disappearance wasn't a triumph. It wasn't a defeat either. It was simply the end. "Dad," Sabrina called from the dining room. "I need help with Neptune's rings." Cyrus returned, leaving thoughts of Naomi behind, focusing on the daughter who stood before him, glue stick in hand. In the weeks that followed, life gradually settled into new rhythms. Police classified Naomi as a missing person, though no evidence of foul play was found. International border records later confirmed she had crossed into Mexico before vanishing, likely using the false IDs Raymond had once arranged for their aborted escape. Cyrus broke the news to the children as gently as possible, presenting it not as abandonment, but as another result of their mother's unresolved struggles. With the help of the family therapist, Sabrina and Aiden processed their emotions, while Cyrus remained a constant, steady, present, and unshakable. Exactly 1 year after the trip to the cabin that had shattered their old lives, Cyrus stood in his backyard watching his children laugh and play with neighborhood friends. A barbecue crackled on the patio, where Liam and his wife manned the grill. Friends, neighbors, and colleagues mingled over drinks and laughter. Delilah Frost appeared quietly at his side, a rare appearance for the typically reserved investigator. Delilah noted the change with a glance toward Aiden, now laughing easily with a group of friends, a stark contrast to the angry, withdrawn boy he'd been just a year earlier. "Quite a transformation," she observed. "Children are resilient when they have stability," Cyrus replied. "And their father?" she asked, her tone probing. "Is he resilient too?" Cyrus paused, considering. "I've been called many things: ruthless, unforgiving, cold, but never weak." "That's not what I asked," Delilah said quietly. Before he could respond, Sabrina came running up to show him her latest drawing, a family portrait of the three of them beneath a brightly shining sun. Cyrus accepted it with a smile, genuine warmth softening his features. "I'm exactly who I need to be," he told Delilah. "Someone who protects what matters, whatever it takes." As the evening came to a close, the sun dipped below the Denver skyline, casting golden shadows across the yard where a new chapter of life had taken root. Guests said their goodbyes, the children tidied up without protest, and the house soon settled into its peaceful routine. Later, alone in his study, Cyrus opened a drawer containing the final surveillance report on Naomi, the last remaining thread of a woman who had nearly destroyed everything he loved. After a brief hesitation, he fed the documents into the shredder, watching silently as they turned to irretrievable fragments. It wasn't forgiveness. Cyrus Monroe did not forgive betrayal, but it was an acknowledgement that justice, precise, unrelenting, and final, had been served. The past had been put in its place. Ahead lay the future, and Cyrus turned toward it with his children at his side. It would be built with the same care and clarity that had guided his vengeance. Some might call it merciless. He called it justice. Cold justice. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.